Beautiful. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first Bitcoin for Beginners after the summer break. I hope everyone had a fantastic summer break. We're getting back into school. We're getting back into Bitcoin season. And I'm joined today by Jeff Newman from Sovreign. We have a special Bitcoin for Beginners today. Today, Jeff is going to be discussing how your business can start adopting Bitcoin and level up to a Bitcoin standard. There's a few different ways to go about that. I'm really excited for you guys to hear about that. And Bitcoin for Beginners always has the, why are we here and talking about Bitcoin? What makes Bitcoin so special? Why are folks like us so interested in Bitcoin? And we've broken it down to kind of three main topics or three main points about what makes Bitcoin different and unique, particularly in comparison to fiat money or government currency, the money that you get paid with every other week, the money that you use to buy and sell groceries, the money that you seem to need more of to buy groceries lately. And why are those things the way they are? Well, we're going to dive into that right away. So first off, and secondly, yes, we are also going to be joined by Jeff, and he's going to discuss with you how Bitcoin can help your business and how your business can benefit from adopting Bitcoin and what adopting Bitcoin for your business means. So with regards to why Bitcoin, we're going to be looking at Bitcoin and inflation, specifically how Bitcoin doesn't have inflation or how dollars do have inflation. And inflation can be categorized as a few different things. I think two main ways that everyone can think about and interact with inflation is the grocery bill, the price of school, the price of medicine, the price of a lot of different things seem to be getting more and more expensive every year. Why is this? We're usually told this is the way things are, or even the way that things have to be. But we're kind of starting to realize that there might be more to it, and there might be another option for how to structure an economy. The chart that I have here, if you're not into charts, you're not a chart enthusiast, what this image is showing you is this blue line is an increase in the total number of dollars in the economy. And what you can see is that it starts to increase and it starts to jump around these grayed out areas, which are recessions. And what we're seeing is that the central banks, to kind of hope to end the recession or a recession, will print money and kind of distribute it throughout the economy, mainly to the banks, so that the economy can kind of have a little bit of a boost. You can kind of think of this as like when you're sick, you're getting a little bit of antibiotics to make you feel better. But what we see is that in the great financial crisis, we saw a little bit of a bump, and and around COVID time, we see this massive bump, especially relative to the previous one in that bigger recession almost 15 years ago. And what we're seeing is that, like someone who is maybe getting sick and taking antibiotics too often, we're having to have more antibiotics or print more money to kind of fix the problem. And what we seem to see here is that our economy is sick, and printing money seems to be the only solution. And that's why our grocery bills are getting more expensive. That's why various things you're starting to see, like houses, are becoming more and more expensive, because while we can print dollars, we can't print food. We can't print meat. We can't print houses. And these things just reflect the increased amount of dollars chasing them. If there's $100 in the economy and 100 apples, one apple is $1. But if there's all of a sudden $500 and still 100 apples, well, guess how much an apple's going to cost? An apple's going to cost $5. That's what inflation does. And Bitcoin doesn't have inflation in that regard. I showed you the previous chart of just an amount of dollars continuously increasing. Well, what we see here is a chart of all Bitcoin that is going to be produced for the next 20 something years. And what this tells us is that the amount of Bitcoin that's produced, the total amount of Bitcoin, is actually going to be reaching a fixed amount, and less and less Bitcoin will be made on an ongoing basis. And what this means is that that your Bitcoin is not going to be inflated away. It's not going to be printed. And we can even see how many Bitcoin there's going to be into the future. If I go back to the previous slide, we don't know how many dollars are going to be in the future. We're not told that. We're not able to participate or even vote on the amount of dollars. That's just a privileged group of a few individuals that tell us what money is going to cost. And that's arguably unfair. And that's kind of one of the reasons why we like Bitcoin, is because Bitcoin tells us how many Bitcoin there are going to be. We are allowed to vote on that. And we know with certainty what the future of Bitcoin is. And that future is basically a lack of inflation, which means that your hard-earned income is not going to be inflated away. It's actually going to be protected by Bitcoin. Now, how else can Bitcoin protect you and protect your money? Well, a few years ago, in Canada, we saw the Canadian truckers protest, and specifically a lot of folks that donated even $50 to the truckers protest had bank accounts shut down. This meant that they couldn't buy groceries, they couldn't buy medicine, they might not be able to travel for work. They were eventually cut off from the economy. And this is because there's a few banks, and all the banks are controlled by the government. So the basically one law written, and the government will tell the banks what to do. Banks can't say no. We've seen other forms of banks trying to interfere with Bitcoin. The United States had Operation Choke Point, where banks were basically removing services for companies in the Bitcoin world. Our CEO, Adam O'Brien, has had this happen to him personally. Our CEO is unable to bank in Canada. He's officially debanked just because he owns and operates a Bitcoin business. It's incredibly unfair. And this doesn't even just happen with Bitcoin. Governments have been doing this for a long time. In 1934, Executive 6102 or EO 6102 was passed. And what this meant was that the government, there was a recession in the 1930s. The government felt like they needed more money. So what they do? They wrote a law that it was illegal for citizens to hold gold, and they took all the gold from their citizens so the government could go out and spend again. This is like there's a clear history of the government seizing assets, controlling assets, and not looking out for the individual. And that's what makes Bitcoin special, because the government can't just take your Bitcoin. When you have your Bitcoin in self-custody, which is kind of like, instead of having gold in the bank, it's like having gold in the safe in your house. Now imagine with Bitcoin, right? You have Bitcoin in your own cold storage wallet, in your own possession. Nobody can take that Bitcoin from you. Bitcoin is the only asset in history where this has been possible. It's like the one thing you can actually truly own. And this is why we say Bitcoin is censorship resistant. I can send a transaction to Jeff whether the government wants me to or not. I can own my Bitcoin whether a government wants to or not. And we know that governments change and opinions can change, but your property should still stay your property. So that's one of the reasons that Bitcoin enables freedom and independence, because you can truly own it and you can truly financially express yourself with it. No censorship can basically happen to your wallet. And how can I make all these claims and be so confident that this is the way Bitcoin is? Well, that's because Bitcoin isn't controlled by a person, right? People change, CEOs of companies and presidents change, which means that companies' directions and the policy of countries change because people change, people's opinions change. But Bitcoin isn't governed by people. Bitcoin is governed by math. And the math of Bitcoin is on screen, clear as day. And I'm not really a coder, but after a little bit of practice, I was able to understand what this means. And it simply shows you the chart I described earlier, where we know the amount of Bitcoin that are going to be produced today and in the future. And we look at here having basically the block subsidy starting at 50. The subsidy is cut in half every 210,000 blocks, which will occur every about 4 years. And we know this to be true. About every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin is cut in half, that's produced every block is cut in half from 50 to 25, 12.5, 6.125, and we continue to get lower and lower. And eventually this will stop at 21 million, guaranteeing that Bitcoin doesn't have inflation. The same rules that are transparent and clear as day, outlining the inflation of Bitcoin, are also the same rules that outline the ability to send a transaction. It's clear rules that if it's correct, everything's going to go through. There's no one that can kind of protest and say, I don't want this transaction to go through. If it's a legitimate transaction, it is processed. That's as simple as it works. We can also see, just by looking at the math of Bitcoin, that Bitcoin is protected by encryption. So how I can say that no one can take Bitcoin from your cold storage wallet is because your wallet is encrypted. It has a secure private key that is incapable of being guessed. And that is what protects your Bitcoin. And at the same time, that incredible security is free. Your bank probably charges you a certain amount of money to hold onto your money, the privilege of holding onto your money. But Bitcoin does it all for free with better protection, better censorship resistance, which means you can actually do what you want with your money. And your money itself is a superior form that's not going to be inflated away. Bitcoin self-custody is ultimately just the best way to store your wealth into the future. And it's really easy now to buy Bitcoin. It used to be hard. Wallets used to be challenging to operate. It used to be difficult to find a legitimate place to buy and use Bitcoin. But places now like Bitcoin Well exist. We're publicly traded. All of our actions are highly transparent. We never hold on to your Bitcoin. Wallets to get set up are super easy. Most of them are free. And we have a bunch that we recommend, like Blue Wall. This is one that I regularly use, and many other folks at various Bitcoin companies regularly use. With regards to hardware wallets, there's several others that we recommend, like Blockstream Jade. If you have any questions about Bitcoin wallets, feel free to ask them. We'll gladly give you some pointers after this. And then once you've got your wallet, it's super easy to just go and start buying Bitcoin. You plug in your public address, which is kind of like an account number for banking. It's just the place that people know that this is where they send Bitcoin for it to arrive at your wallet or your hardware storage. And it's pretty much that simple. Like, you send Bitcoin wallet dollars, we send you Bitcoin, and that's basically it. It's automatic. If you want to buy large amounts of Bitcoin, we have Bitcoin Well Infinite, and that allows you to make purchases starting at 50 grand all the way up to infinity. We have no upper limit on our transactions. We process Bitcoin Well Infinite transactions essentially globally. Our main online portal is just in Canada and the United States, but Bitcoin Well Infinite serving large transactions, we can essentially serve any country. The fees for that go as low as 1%. And we're not like other exchanges or crypto brokers that have all these hidden fees. We just have one simple, transparent fee that's going to apply to all your transactions, making it very easy for you to kind of know what you're paying and what you're getting. And if you're looking to get a large purchase, or if you're looking to buy Bitcoin for your businesses, well, I've got the guy for you. His name is Jeff. He happens to be in this call, and he worked with Sovreign, which this is their expertise, this is their bread and butter. So, Jeff, without further ado, I'll let you take it away and explain Sovreign and what you guys do there.
Yeah, thank you, Conrad. You can hear me, yes?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. Yes. So the name Sovreign, if you can tell, it's based off the word sovereign, sovereignty. But to brand it, we took the first E off, so you can see that we spell it a little uniquely. So that's Sovreign, and our website is sovreign.io. We're a consultancy built up of Bitcoiners. So we're all Bitcoin maxis first and foremost, and that's how we've assembled the team and worked together. If we could go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so just a high level overview. Sovreign exists to help with Bitcoin education, strategy, technical implementations for businesses. We're industry agnostic. We're not too worried about what your business does, but the way we see it as far as market segmentation, instead of being, say, focused on publicly traded corporations and the Bitcoin treasuries that you may have seen in the news, we're focused on mom and pop, privately owned, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, basically owner operated entrepreneurs. And again, the industry term is SMB. And I'll try to avoid jargon, so keep me honest. SMB is an acronym for small, medium-sized businesses. And I'll give you an example. I Google searched how many SMBs are there in America. And it's like 33 million. It's like if you add Canada, maybe 35 million. Well, SMBs, or the majority of businesses, are small businesses, 1 or 2 employees, maybe up to 50, and then the medium size you could say is 100 to 200 employees. I did a little further research, and that's about 90% of people that work for businesses work for SMBs. It's the publicly traded companies are the outliers, and so yeah, so basically the majority of businesses out there you could categorize as a quote unquote SMB. And then what's interesting about them is that the owner operators are entrepreneurs, and oftentimes are decision makers. And in a perfect world, they're Bitcoiners first, and then they've realized the benefits of Bitcoin. They purchase with Bitcoin Well. They understand the benefits of saving and hodling and using Bitcoin as a store of value. And oftentimes, what we see is a person's phase 2 is to say, well, I've already enjoyed the benefits of Bitcoin as an individual. Maybe it's time to integrate Bitcoin into my small business. That's the phone call I'd love to have. What I'm also seeing, which is interesting, is when you flip it. So what if someone's busy operating their business and they're open-minded to Bitcoin, but they just, they're humble enough to say, hey, I haven't really done the work. I'm not against it, but I just haven't had the time to do a self-study. Why don't I use my small business as a vehicle where I could, meet a team of consultants, trusted advisors. We could integrate Bitcoin into my business, And then I could learn along the way and maybe have a personal stack for my family. And so that's something that we see as well. Oh, can we go back one more, please? And I just wanted to say one other thing I'll put out there, not necessarily the topic for this, is TradFi. We are bridge builders at Sovreign. So again, we all have backgrounds in traditional finance and consulting and technology. And so we as Bitcoiners all come together, and we were trying to take the Bitcoin knowledge we have and be bridge builders into traditional finance or into traditional industries that haven't yet enjoyed and figured out Bitcoin. So one of the things we're working on is partnering with financial advisors, where if they can't or won't answer questions to their clients, can we educate the financial advisors and therefore help the clients, and those clients may own businesses. So again, we're in the middle between retail and business owners, but we see the overlap. So an entrepreneur that owns a small business will probably need Bitcoin for their personal family stack, but also should enjoy the benefits of Bitcoin into their business. Let's go to the next one. And it's not for me to tell you how to run your business or where to start. There's a spectrum, there's maturity levels. So like any good consultant, any good partner, we would follow up with you and have a private, free consultation to start with, an introduction call, and really just do thorough discovery. Who are you? Where are you at? What do you want to do? And also, I was just talking to somebody today, and they want to crawl, walk, run. Let's not overwhelm you. I can show you what the mountaintop looks like. I can show you what the path to sovereignty and full control and all that looks like, but that might be a multi-year journey. And you don't have to do the journey by yourself. You don't have to fall into traps. That's exactly why we get out of bed in the morning, is to help people avoid the traps, stay on the straight and narrow, work with reputable partners like the Bitcoin Well, and meet you where you are. To say, hey, for the next 6 months, this is what you can chew off. We'll help you out with this. And then your phase 2 after that, should you be ready, then the next step would be, fill in the blank. And so again, we very much pride ourselves on alignment and discovery. And then on the right-hand side, you see core. What are we doing here? Well, does your business run a node? Are you verifying your own transactions? Does your business hold private keys? If you have a substantial amount of Bitcoin that you're hodling, do you have multi-sig? What's your setup there and your security protocols? So there's all these types of strategies, implementations. We can be trusted advisors, but we can still pass you on to certified public accountants and licensed people to do your taxes who are partners of ours. And so again, we can make warm introductions and make sure that you're integrated with the right partners at the right time. But we like to be the backstop to say, if it's time to buy Bitcoin, call Conrad. If you're on the journey to stamping out your private keys and titanium metal, what's your strategy there? We can help you with that, and so forth. And so basically you can work with us and you can go to the next partner and work on the next step of your journey. But hopefully as a long-term relationship, you'll come back to us and we'll help you up that mountain. Let's go on to the next one. So yeah, and so again, educational workshops. We need to meet you where you are. I know there's a variety of people in this audience and people I talk to where I have to level set with people when I talk to them. Are you new to Bitcoin, or are you already down the rabbit hole as an individual? Have you integrated some use case into your business? So there's a whole range of maturity. And so when it comes to education and workshops, one of the things we've seen is if it's a small business, we can scope out what the use case, the implementation is, and help you there. But sometimes what we see is in larger organizations is we need to help people sell the vision, which means not only do we do technical implementation and integration of Bitcoin, sometimes we need to get stakeholders together, the decision makers at the business. So if a Bitcoiner within a large organization reaches out to us and says, I want to integrate Bitcoin, I think we should do lightning payments. We want the stake and shake experience. I want to save money on Visa, MasterCard fees. All great initiative, perfect. You want to use Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. That's wonderful. Now, what about the committee? How do we convince other people? So we could plug in as your fractional Bitcoin experts. We can be if you raise your hand as I want to do something with Bitcoin in my organization, but I need help, we can help you educate, be your advocate, and get the project approved and implemented. So I want to say that in some of our projects, we're doing a specific integration job, but we also allocate X amount of time to say, we're going to do a private internal educational webinar with Q&A with our experts interfacing with your stakeholders so that everybody is on board and this project is a success. And like, again, I don't want to overstate this, as we can absolutely do education as part of our projects, but we can also do workshops with a purpose. And again, a lot of flexibility here. We just need to talk to you offline and figure out what you really need, but putting that out there. Let's go to the next one, please. Yeah, and same idea. So we are building Sovreign, a library of educational content. And so as we're building and as I'm talking to people and learning stuff, we have a weekly newsletter free to sign up for. We published a free ebook called The Business Case for Bitcoin. It's about 80 pages, but there's like infographics. And if you're a hardcore Bitcoiner, you've seen a lot of these and you're like, oh, that's good, I know that meme. But if it's new to you, we're making a logical case. And it's a free ebook, it's a PDF, it reads really quick, like 30 pages, even though it's like 80, and it's very pretty. I think it's worthy of printing if needed, but we're trying to save some trees here. But it's a nice resource. It's free to download. We'll share that link with you. And also we've built up something called the Bitcoin Business Podcast. And our CEO, Brandon Carpels, he's the main host. I've done a few offshoots, and he will meet with Bitcoiners who have businesses. And in time, we're going to have some of our customers who are not shy. And the way that we partner with our customers is give them a platform to promote, how has Bitcoin benefited your business? Are you using Bitcoin as a store of value? Are you using it as a medium of exchange? How are you thinking about it as a unit of account, as your denominator, as a monetary network? And so by giving our partners platform to tell their stories, we are growing a podcast. You can find it on YouTube with video. You can find it on Spotify with audio. And if you're a Bitcoiner, we have fountain.fm, value for value as well. And so, yeah, so we have a YouTube channel, the Bitcoin Business Podcast, and we're growing a library with some really interesting guests. And let's go to the next one, please. Yep. Oh, and then, yeah, that's the infographic from our website. You can get the business case for Bitcoin. It's a free ebook downloadable. I think it's under the resource tab. And that's a visual of what I was saying. It's about an 80-page PDF. It's beautiful. It covers a lot of things, and it's a good primer. I've gotten good feedback from people in the industry and from customers saying, I'm new to Bitcoin. I just need a 101 starter. And this is how we help you at your crawl phase. Is, it's okay to crawl, and this is a perfect first step, and it's a free ebook, and it opens up a conversation where the real magic happens when we're talking privately and we really get to know you, and we can give you real advice offline. So next one, please. Yeah, and then as you'd expect from a consultancy, we do discovery and consulting. We have some core services, some common use cases we're seeing, and we have, again, what I was saying earlier is we want to focus on SMB, small business owners, entrepreneurs. We tend to see our early adopters as businesses and people that are actually connected to proof of work, where they understand the debasement of dollars and currency manipulation. And so people that actually, instead of having what they call them laptop jobs, people that own gyms and have maybe a construction company, they're connected to the value of labor, and so there's actually constraints of their industry. And so when they see people manipulating the money, they're very sensitive to that. And so again, we have a number of use cases, but also a number of industries that we're seeing as early adopters. And again, anything that we don't do, we have vetted partners, and by vetted, partners that are aligned with the Bitcoin mission, Bitcoin only, and also just high integrity, like people that we trust. So this is, again, learning or integrating Bitcoin. It's not a task, it's a journey, and it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and there's many phases to this. And so again, we want to be your trusted partner from the beginning to the end, but we can also let you go and quarterback you to the next trusted partner based on your where you are in your journey. So again, that's how we say what hardware wallet should you purchase, and who's going to help you with multi-sig, and who should do your taxes, and those types of questions. And so again, we make introductions, we give you choices, and then we help you based on what you choose. And yeah, and I'll just say, as our partner program, we also take referrals. We appreciate referrals. I have some referral partners who are out and about, and they just say, listen, I can't do everything myself. Or I have some very close family and friends. There's people at my Thanksgiving dinner table who anybody but me can help them. Who can I trust? And so it's, I've actually hopped on calls where they've joined me and they've made introductions, and my team has given white glove service and done a great job. And again, it's just, they just need to hear a different voice of professional experts, and that's who we are, is coming to the table to help people. So always appreciate referrals, and both professional as well as if you're out and about. And so, so I would just say the next one, we are Bitcoiners first and foremost. We have a variety of experts from traditional finance, banking, technology, consulting, energy, solar panels, people with real estate license. I'll give you an example. So this is kind of the overlap. Is it a business owner, or is it just a high net worth retail investor? We've seen a trend, which is people saying, I don't need to own more than one property. My primary residence is enough, but the second property, it's not really, the amount of risk with secondary properties is too high, or being an Airbnb operator was not a great idea. So I'm going to go ahead and digitally transform my capital. I'm going to cash out of my second, third, and fifth property, and I'd like to transfer that value and buy Bitcoin with it. So we're seeing that, and so we have people that are real estate experts, both commercial and residential real estate experts, and that's a really fun use case too. Is the digital transformation of capital is, there's a joke in the Bitcoin community: sell all your chairs. Anything that you don't need, you should convert to Bitcoin, because you should stack sats, and it's a long-term store of value. So what we see is people, selling their Rolexes, selling their extra properties, and whether that's just as an individual retail person, we can consult and help you if you need some help there. And it could be a small project, it could be a few hours, but again, this is a long-term relationship where we're here to help you every step of the way. And so we tend to help business owners, but also if they have personal or retail or family matters that aren't connected to their literal business, we can still help them with strategy and which Bitcoin partners to use. And so again, that's just a long-winded way of saying end-to-end support. We meet you where you are. And the bespoke solutions, I run into some very interesting stuff. Again, during discovery, we've had startups that want to start a new company on a Bitcoin standard, want to raise capital from investors, and hey, how much Bitcoin what percentage of my savings should be Bitcoin? And that's a very specific question. What's your burn rate? What type of business do you have? What's your cash flow? How much cash on hand should you have? And we totally respect the balance between living in a fiat world and saving in Bitcoin. So again, there's partners out there that have Bitcoin banking type solutions where you can, what is it? You save in Bitcoin, so that's your your savings account, but then you spend in fiat, and that's your checking account. But then what's the ratio? And that's a personal question. We have to get to know you and your industry a little better. And again, education, it's integrated, but we can also build education, like a webinar, educational seminar for stakeholders, for investors, for committees, you name it. So let's take a look at the next one, please. How to work with us. So if we don't know you yet, we'd love to meet you, and we can start with a free 30-minute consultation. What I like to do is understand who you are, where you're at, your use case, your industry. And then that helps me, if I'm not the right person, I can bring in technical folks, I can bring in industry experts. I alluded to the variety of expertise we have on our team. So that's how I listen for, what are you looking to do? What's the goal and outcome? And then also, where are you at today and what industry? And sometimes even geographically. We're spread out. We have people across the US, we have people in Argentina and Europe. And so, I guess you could say we're global. We can cover any geographic area. But if there's a local aspect of meeting in person or something to that effect, we also like to take that into consideration and match you with someone, at least in your time zone. So so I'll say that. And then Conrad, this is my email, my mobile number. And our website, our URL is Sovreign without the first E, so it's spelled that way, and then it's a .io, so not a .com, but a Sovreign.io. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Wonderful, Jeff. Thank you very much for that. That was a wealth of knowledge. I'm sure anyone that would book a meeting with you is going to get a additional wealth of knowledge on how to move forward. We're gonna be wrapping up here, but don't run away just yet, because now we're in the awesome Q&A period. Do you have a question about something with Bitcoin and you want to ask someone who's been in the industry for a while? Jeff and I have both been in the industry for quite a while, so we're very happy to answer any of your questions. It could be something silly. It could be something that you might think is like an easy question or a silly question. There are no silly questions. We all had to start knowing nothing about Bitcoin, and then we all just gradually learn. I think Jeff mentioned it. It's a Bitcoin journey, so we're happy to just help you along your Bitcoin journey.
Awesome, Conrad. Thank you so much, and thank you, Jeffrey. That was awesome. Now moving to the Q&A, Jeffrey, I do have a few questions for you. So, how do you define success when helping a client transition some of their treasury into Bitcoin?
Yeah, how does treasury? So define success. Well, again, I think at first it's how much, and we could. So this is what I like to say. How much Bitcoin should I buy, or what percentage of my net worth should be Bitcoin? That's a question. And so for the business, how much of my Bitcoin or my business balance sheet or savings treasury should be in Bitcoin? And I guess unless there's a specific reason, it's proportionate to your understanding. So if you're just getting started, most people recommend start with 1 to 5%. So you have some skin in the game. You get off of zero. Get off zero means instead of having no Bitcoin, take a baby step, to crawl. And so that's the best way to do it, where it's a journey, and you also need to be in it for the long run. So the other piece is, what are your goals with this? Are you looking to hodl and save it as a store of value? Are you going to do this over 5 years, 10 years? So that's a big question. So I would say that we need to get to know you privately and understand what ratio, what percentage is a good start. Also map out phases, so that say, okay, once we recognize what success looks like, when are you ready to go from 5% to 15? And also, what's the cap? Like, did we understand something about your business or industry where you say you should never have more than 50%? I don't want to go into extremes where we say you should live 100% on Bitcoin and end fiat tomorrow. That's talk about a journey. Some people don't make it to the quote unquote mountaintop. Some people don't go all in that way, and that's perfectly fine once we get to know you and understand why. So I would say success is tied to your personal goals and values. And I say, if you don't understand anything, 1 to 5% is conservative and great. If you already are a personal Bitcoiner on a retail level, and then you have this business that you want to introduce to Bitcoin or get on the Bitcoin standard, and then you tell me a little bit more about your risk thresholds and cash flow, and can you pay your vendors in Bitcoin? Can you pay your employees in Bitcoin? That would be interesting. Then you could have more Bitcoin. But if you still, for reasons I don't know, regulations, whatever, that you have to live in a hybrid fiat world, well, then you should have 6 months cash flow in fiat if that's how you have to pay your bills. So we have to have these conversations where we really get to know where you're at and where you can go. And it's basically, again, the analogy of the mountaintop is, how far do you want to climb? And then how fast, because we don't want you to get, the oxygen sickness. So, start at 5% and then acclimate, and then let's all agree. Let's both shake hands that phase 1 was successful, and now you're ready for phase 2. And that's just a matter of getting to know you and being clear on goals and then pacing ourselves. So I think that's a good analogy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Moving on to the next question. What challenges are most common amongst your clients?
Well, there's a huge variety. I would say, what are the most common challenges? Yeah, I would say that doing this by yourself is challenging. There's a wealth of information on YouTube and so forth. But again, we have a great technical team where it's, okay, if you're going to set up private keys and set up a node, again, there's no dumb questions, but I just had a meeting today where someone said, what is a node? And do I have to have a node in phase 1? And So I would say that I guess it's a long way of saying education is a challenge and meeting people where they're at, but making sure that they see that there is a path to the top. And then if I need to, break it up. Do I need to run a node to work with you in phase one? And sometimes I would say it would be great if you had the Bitcoin network, the operating system implemented so you could verify your transactions and make sure that it's yours and have sovereignty and control. But I've also worked with people where I say, you know what, let's just start with your hardware wallet, your seed phrases. Let's just start with securing things. And if you're going to hodl for a while, maybe we can do your node next. And then my question is, do you want to do transactions and verify transactions? And then do you want to do, medium of exchange, so lightning payments and accept customer payments with Bitcoin? Do you want to verify that? You should have a node for that. So it's one of these things where part of it's education and part of it's working on phases of adoption that's right for the customer, and saying ultimately you do want to have a node, but you must have a node to do the first thing, which is take your Bitcoin off of exchange into your private wallet and secure your private keys. Not necessarily, but you should have it right afterwards. So there's always nuance with individuals, and it just goes into like their capacity and their goals. And then I have to like customize the timing to say, ideally, I'd like to bundle this together and we work on it as one project, but it's okay to do a crawl and a walk, but I definitely want to get you walking, and I do want you to have a node. So.
Thank you so much. This was very insightful. Now we're just going to move on to a question from our audience. It says advanced question for both speakers. What is your take on the OP return situation with Bitcoin Core and Bitcoin Knots?
I'll take this one first. So I think first off, kind of what is this for folks that don't really know what we're talking about? This is basically recently Bitcoin, the Bitcoin blocks, which process Bitcoin transactions, kind of like an incremental or a batch of transactions that all kind of happen within a group of a time period. It's kind of the way that Bitcoin transactions are processed. And in addition to processing these transactions, recently some folks found ways to insert additional information into these blocks. This additional information, instead of just being like codes of text, is now like images. And images take up more space, like memory on your hard drive, than just like the bit of text. And this matters for those folks that are running Bitcoin nodes, because now they're having to deal with different information flooding into their hard drives rather than just like text. So they're having images. And there might be some consequences potentially of having certain types of images on a hard drive, but also ultimately kind of one of the things that's leading to is two things. One is a rise occasionally in cost when people are fighting to insert these pictures into the Bitcoin blockchain, but also it means that the people that are running nodes are running into more costs and issues kind of managing the nodes, because the space is filling up. And a concern of this is that if it's too expensive and difficult to run a node, then Bitcoin loses its decentralization, and we end up having to trust a few trusted people to run nodes on behalf of other people, which can lead to censorship resistance, which is one of the pillars of what makes Bitcoin so strong and so powerful. So the question is this being able to allow inserting images into the blockchain, is that a good thing, or should we move to a different type of node software that allows us to kind of censor or remove those images from transactions, so we can kind of just focus on just moving money around? That's kind of the debate that's happening right now. A lot of people are really passionate about it. I would think that, I think it's a bit early maybe to kind of give one side or the other. It seems like there's an ideological case in favor of moving to removing these images from transactions, but also it's like some folks are worried about a slippery slope. Like if we start removing one thing, what if we start removing other things? What if we start kind of saying, oh, well, these transactions are no longer valid? It kind of leads to like people kind of arguing about what is fair, what is not valid. And it's kind of hard to censor one thing and not another. But another very valid case is that, Bitcoin is a network that needs adoption. And if it's expensive and difficult to use a network, that hinders adoption. So that means if transaction fees are really expensive because everyone's fighting for these photos, that can make it difficult for anyone to use Bitcoin. Folks like you and I, local businesses, it's not what we want. We want Bitcoin to be easy to use. We want it to be expensive to use. So it's kind of this balance right now. Long way of kind of explaining that for our audience. I hope that was concise enough. In my opinion, I think that there is an economic question of whether we need to do this. I'm kind of primarily looking at economic fees, basically. Are the fees becoming to the point where it's interfering with everyday folks from being able to use Bitcoin? Not everyone is running a node. So for folks that aren't running a node but are spending and transacting with Bitcoin, this is kind of something that's more happening behind the scenes. But if you are running a node, then you're kind of participating in deciding what Bitcoin is. And then that's where I think this software debate matters a lot more to you, because you're kind of choosing how you want to, what kind of software you want. And that is, I think, ultimately your choice. I think that is what makes Bitcoin what it is. Bitcoin is always evolving, and it's not a CEO, it's not a company. There isn't just one person that decides how it's going to evolve. It's everyone kind of has this ongoing conversation. So next webinar, we might have the same question come up, and we might be talking about it a little bit differently, because maybe new information will come out, or the conversation will have progressed to a direction. So I call that a cop-out answer, call that like me being unsure, or just waiting to see where the pieces fall before kind of making a decision. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. But I think ultimately it speaks to the passion of of Bitcoiners all arguing in favor of what they think is best, and ultimately one's voice prevails. It's all about the group. So Jeff, I know I kind of took that question away, but I'd love for you to give any insight on that as well, if you have any.
I think, yeah, you made few great points, which is it's an ongoing debate. I'm seeing it being hashed out online right now. My team has strong opinions, but again, it goes back to it's your choice. It's your choice how you want to use. First off, are you going to run a node? Are you going to take personal responsibility to have sovereignty, or you're going to have your own Bitcoin operating system, monetary network, and verify your own transactions? And then, yes, now there is the core and the knots and the different versions of core. And so we can talk about pros and cons and trade-offs, but ultimately it's your choice. We at Sovreign can, if you're completely new to Bitcoin and this is going to be your first node and you ask what version, yes, we have a strong opinion. But we need to get to know you to say, have you already been using a different version? You know, is it your choice whether you upgrade or not? So this is still being hashed out. And again, it goes back to, ideally, we don't want you to just listen to our advice. We want you to make an informed decision. So you have choices, and then there's trade-offs, and you can say, hey, a Coke or Pepsi. It's like, that's really not for me to say what your preference of flavor is, but at the same time, they're both cola, right? And so you're going to be able to interface with the Bitcoin network. So if you want to be on core version 29 or upgrade to 30, if you want to be on knots, we will have a deep, thorough conversation of what that means, but also in the context of who are you? Did you just show up to Bitcoin today and this is your first version, first node ever? That's interesting. What are your intentions? And again, I'm talking with the assumption that you're a business owner using a node for business. My question is, are you just hodling, saving in Bitcoin, or are you paying your employees and your vendors? Do you have a lightning channel? I need to know more about you before I can give you my opinion. And then we can give you the trade-offs and risks, and then it's still your choice, because we don't tell our clients what to do. We give them options. So it's a great question. It's not crystal clear, but then there's nuance. And again, I guess I need to have more conversations where I might have a different answer, a recommendation based on who I'm talking to. I could see a world where, even though my team has, my technical team has a very strong view and has picked a side, I'm still open-minded enough to meet more people, Bitcoiners, to say, well, based on what you've told me about yourself, maybe my recommendations for you is Pepsi. I don't know yet. So I leave the door open and say, we're still people smarter than you are hashing it out. And then my best advice is not on webinars, but privately, when I get to know you and have a real private, authentic conversation, then I can give you a recommendation. But ultimately, it's your choice. But we can give you the trade-offs. Say, if you're going to install this one, there's a difference. And again, sometimes it's Coke and Pepsi. Sometimes it's a preference of, I like Microsoft over Google, and there's reasons. But we need to get to know you better. And hopefully, maybe there will be a clear winner later, but at the moment, I think Knot is at like 20% market share. So there's diversity. There's enough room for both sides right now. So I hope that's helpful, but it's not conclusive because it's not over.
Thank you so much. Those were amazing answers. I do have a question for you, Jeffrey.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on custodial versus non-custodial exchanges?
Yeah. So you're going to buy Bitcoin, and this is a question that came up recently. Was someone wants to buy Bitcoin, but they haven't yet set up their hardware wallet, or they haven't set up a node. And so the question is like, well, but I need to buy it today for reasons. Okay, well, you don't want to leave your Bitcoin on the exchange for a long time, but the more reputable the exchange is, the less risky. And again, we Sovereign do not partner with and do not recommend the casinos. And I'll just say, Coinbase, or like the exchanges that have the altcoins and the meme coins. And again, it's a casino, it's a fiat game. These are scams. It's just, again, at the end, we are Bitcoin maximalists because we realize that Bitcoin is perfect money, and to run a node, you can be self-sovereign, and there's rules here. And again, so none of those casino things. That's why those exchanges are untrustworthy. There's a lot of Nostr and Twitter where they're like, don't leave your Bitcoin on Coinbase. If you were using Coinbase, don't leave your Bitcoin on Coinbase, right? But I would say that, and I'll just make up a hypothetical here. If you were new to Bitcoin and you needed to buy Bitcoin today, you got to transfer the melting ice cube. You got to transfer your fiat to Bitcoin, and you call up Conrad and Riley, and you buy from, but you're not ready to take it off yet. That's okay. This is actually a reputable exchange where I would like to say that hopefully within a few months you pull it off. And then we also talked about hot wallets and cold wallets. The mobile app, it's okay for up to a certain amount. I don't know what your size is. I don't, so I can't tell you what your value is, right? This is a subjective, like, how big your UTXO thresholds are is like a personal matter, right? So a lot of these things are private and personal, but again, we can help you where we say, yeah, maybe you're comfortable with X amount in a hot wallet, but then if it's your true long-term savings, you're going to have it in cold storage with seed, backed up in seed plates and multi-sig, and run your own node. See, that's where we want to go with you, but we understand that this may be a process. So you don't want to leave it on the exchange. That's not really the plan. Hopefully you're not selling it back for fiat. So you do want to buy Bitcoin from a reputable exchange, and like the Bitcoin Well, and then when you're ready, safely and securely get it into cold storage with backups, hopefully multi-sig. Again, there's more steps to take when you have more to protect. And that's why we also need to understand a little bit about you, is your proportionality is, oh, you're new to this, oh, you're just dipping your toe, we're not really talking about size, you're just kind of testing, perfect. Well, then that's a crawl, we can help you there. But once you build the right foundation, then you theoretically, you build the fortress and the foundation to build your citadel, and you could have all your wealth. So I had a conversation today. Why should I spend money setting up stuff with you if I don't even have a lot of, quote unquote, Bitcoin or dollar value in it yet? I'm like, well, if you set it up right, then you'll have a secure foundation to where you can safely transfer and build. But you don't have to do it that way. We can take one step at a time where you dip your toe in, and you also proportionally don't spend too much on consulting in the beginning, but we just help you along the way so you feel like there's proportionality, where we don't want you to pay more professional service fees than the size of your Bitcoin stack. I get that, and so again, it's just a conversation with people about where they are. I hope that helps.
No, it definitely helps. Thank you so much. The next question is for Conrad. So Conrad, why should businesses hold Bitcoin versus other assets?
So big, like when you're operating a business, like you're working really hard to fight for every dollar. And as I discussed earlier, every dollar is kind of being taken away from you in a sense through inflation. So it's like you're fighting for something. It's like you're fighting to fill up a cup of water when the cup has a hole in it. And like, it'd be a lot better to just put all that water into a cup that doesn't have a hole in it. And that's basically what Bitcoin is. So if we think about the standard being your money's being inflated away from you, by protecting your money and it not being inflated away, it's almost like your money is being productive for you. So it's all like, and like operating a business, how hard it is to earn those dollars. So like you don't want to lose them. So that's one reason. And the second reason I would argue it for is in favor of the self-custody, is because that really allows you to plan into the future. If you have your money in a bank, I mean, who here has made a large withdrawal and the bank asked you why and said no, or we don't have this amount of money available today? Like, it's kind of a little nonsense that, you know, the people that are making money off of your money don't want to give it to you. But with Bitcoin, if you need to deploy money for your business, you can. And, you know, also storing Bitcoin on a wallet is completely free. You don't have to pay a bank. It's available 24/7. So if you need money on a holiday, it basically gives you ultimate flexibility, freedom, independence. Like, you can fully do what you want with your own money. And businesses can benefit from that as much as an individual. And same way that businesses are fighting for their dollars that they're earning, individuals are fighting for their wages, and they're fighting for every dollar. Everyone's fighting for dollars every day, and the dollars are like fighting against us. So Bitcoin fights with us. That's why I think everyone should be having Bitcoin.
Can I help answer that too, please? So yeah, it's a great question, and it's, you know, there's many reasons why Bitcoin and just have a Bitcoin business, you know, be on the Bitcoin standard. We say stacking sats or satoshis. It's important to tell, you know, people that may not know that you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. That's unit bias. So Bitcoin can be broken into satoshis, and every one Bitcoin has 100 million satoshis. So you could spend $20 US dollars or Canadian dollars and buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. So you don't have to have one Bitcoin or no Bitcoin. It's not like that. You can start at any increment that makes sense for you. But the other thing is, in business, for the first time, you have the monetary layer is a fixed measuring stick. So here you are in business, you know, quarterly earnings and sales and all these numbers, and you're looking at all these metrics and KPIs, key performance indicators, and trying to measure return on investment. But the funny thing about Bitcoin is fiat is that it's a melting ice cube. You know, until you're aware of inflation and currency debasement, the dollar's value is not even consistent. You know, well, what's the inflation? Is it 2 or 5%, or is the government lying? And you know what happened today with the interest rates, the price of money that changed on a whim with the Federal Reserve. So if you're on the Bitcoin standard, one Bitcoin is equal to one Bitcoin, and you either have a Bitcoin or you don't. And I have talked to business owners who said, "Hi, I'm a business operator, and I'm in a very, you know, I've got investors, and over the last 5 years, we're in a bad industry. It's going downhill, capital destruction, write-offs. My competitors are going out of business. But because I'm a Bitcoiner as an individual, I took some of our investor capital and bought a few Bitcoin for the balance sheet of our small private business." Again, doesn't matter what industry. But that's why the lights are on today. And I'm like, that's very interesting. So because you stacked sats, you bought some Bitcoin, and the dollar value of Bitcoin has 10x over the last 5 years. So that's 1,000% increase in dollar terms. But remember, a Bitcoin it's a fixed measuring stick. There's only 21 million. There's actually less. But the point is this, it's binary. You get off of zero. You either have Bitcoin or you don't. So your business either has Bitcoin on the balance sheet or it doesn't. And again, it's like digital gold, just as an analogy. So you either have a gold bar or you don't have a gold bar. But if you have a gold bar, it's helping you against currency debasement. And if you need to spend in dollars and hire people and expand your business, this example, this person has a competitive advantage. The one competitive advantage they have is that the owner operator understood Bitcoin, saved some Bitcoin, and while everything else in his industry went bad and down south, his competitors had to look their investors and say, "I'm sorry, we're out of business. Write off. It's over," and shut the doors. And in this case, this is a life extension. So it's amazing when you have businesses that choose to save in, and a lot of people don't know this, and I've had to have meetings with people who say, "Do you know what the best performing asset is over the last 5, 10, and 15 years? It's Bitcoin. You're allowed to buy it. You're allowed to put it on your balance sheet. It's a commodity. I'm allowed to talk about the price because it's not a security. I can tell you, I think it may, grow in fiat terms, because guess what? The government's going to always print money and debase the currency, and the supply of Bitcoin will remain fixed." So think about that. We have Conrad and I have plenty of memes and infographics to show you, to say, if you looked at this visual, and that's part of our education and mental models, is to say, you're just new to this, but we are always happy to explain it in whatever language resonates with you. But unit of account, Bitcoin is the denominator. Google US dollar over Bitcoin, and then look at 5, 10, 15 years. The dollar is losing value compared to Bitcoin. If you saved in Bitcoin, your purchasing power grows. If you save in dollars, your purchasing power decreases. So you should have a business with Bitcoin. And you're accepting, Liz, I'm in a restaurant business, I'm accepting dollars. Okay, take 10 or 20% of those dollars, save in Bitcoin. Watch that Bitcoin go up 1,000% in 5 years. That's transformational. That keeps the lights on. That means you don't have to do, what is it, shrinkflation, or cut corners, or you can make payroll. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that keeps a business operating, and also where they don't have to cut corners in very fiat manners where, again, they shrink things or they dilute things. It's all downstream of the broken money. Again, we can talk about this for a long time, but I really do want to say that why should I have a business on Bitcoin? Why should my family save Bitcoin? Because it's perfect, better, hard, strong, money. It's verifiably scarce. So we have a lot of resources. This is written down, but it's really important that we as partners help people understand that. And again, that's where meeting with people privately to make sure that they really see, we have people that are skeptical, and that's fine, but we're like, it's the best performing asset the last 10, 15 years. And our point of view is it's going to remain as such because of what we know about dollars and what we know about Bitcoin. So once we frame it that way, it's a good place to start.
And Jeffrey, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions businesses have about Bitcoin adoption?
Well, Bitcoin is like 16 years old, and in the past, it was, in the past, it's grown up, and so, the governments are not against it. The American government's trying to figure out how to do a reserve right now. The banking regulations have been changed. You mentioned Operation Choke Point 2.0 used to be discriminated against the crypto businesses, and well, the regime's changed and the laws are changing. So misconception is probably people that remember how it was 5 or 10 years ago. Will Bitcoin be banned by the government? No. You're competing with the government of who's going to buy it first. And then I saw a pop-up, someone said, why not just buy IBIT, the ETF? Fair question. You can have exposure to Bitcoin through stocks like Coinbase, Tesla, or MSTR strategy if you want, but that's no sovereignty. You're not taking a bearer instrument. So so you can have financial brokerage account exposure to Bitcoin. Yeah, buy a mining stock, buy an ETF. They have fees, they have risks, that's fine. That's great. It's part of the ecosystem. But what we're talking about is pure, real Bitcoin bought over the exchange of the Bitcoin well, taken into self-custody, running a node, holding your private keys, and then therefore you don't have to ask permission from the government or a bank or a third party to transact value. Imagine, okay, I want to email value across the world, right? Bitcoin is digital gold. I'm just making an example. So, but I don't have to ask permission. Conrad, I could stream sats to you, and directly on a lightning channel. That's interesting, right? And so without anyone else's permission. So that's different than the ETF. If you care about dollar, like, hey, my retirement account, I want it to grow in dollar terms. Okay, well, hey, BlackRock and Fidelity and Hempstead, great. Talk to your financial advisor. And in fact, we educate financial advisors. So there's a variety of ways to get Bitcoin exposure, but we're talking about the real thing, which is powerful because it's a bearer instrument, just like a gold bar that you have in your pocket, that's yours until it's not, until you give it to somebody. And with Bitcoin, once you take it into self-custody, that's yours. So it's very powerful. And there's a responsibility with this, and there's education. And then for your business, again, 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin, and 1 Bitcoin is a lot more valuable than fiat that can be debased forever.
Thank you so much for that. Here's a question from the audience. What are some ways to do multi-sig if you don't want to rely on friends, family, or subsidiaries?
Sure. Well, I see we're running out of time, and we have some partners for this, and we have some best practices. So I just say that that's a great question. It's complex, and it deserves like a private, private consultation to get the correct answer. Some of these things are debatable. and you have choices. Again, I can't tell you what the right flavor of cola is. You have to tell me. So.
All
Best
right.
one for a string as well. It depends. So
Yeah, it depends.
And then one question from the audience as well. Is there any job opportunities at Sovreign or at Bitcoin Well for consultants or software engineering?
With regards to Bitcoin Well, there's nothing that I believe I'm aware of at the moment. However, you see we got an email here, OTC email. I think we maybe have mine as well, the k.fits. Shoot me an email at k.fits@bitcoinwell.com if you got a resume, and just let me know what you'd be interested in. I'll happily pass this along to our team. I'm not sure if we have anything available in the moment right now, but if you get something in the door now, it'll allow us to look at it and then start already considering it when we do open up any positions in the future.
Yeah, and I'll say, reach out to me as well. We don't have any W-2 salaried roles available at the moment, but there are ways to collaborate and build proof of work. And so just reach out to me privately, and I'm more than happy to see if there's a fit.
Awesome. And the last question from Carl: why not just buy IBIT?
Oh yeah, I try to hit that. It depends on who you are and what you want to do, but the ETFs are not spot Bitcoin. You don't take a self-custody, you don't own it, and you can't spend it the way we use it. So it's like saying, why not just get a gold ETF rather than a bar of gold? And it's a similar conversation. It's based on what you want to do.
I'd also like to argue that maybe a little bit differently than Jeff's perspective, but I don't really think that holding IBIT is the best way to get exposure to Bitcoin. I talked a lot about how holding Bitcoin is free. If you start to kind of calculate the fees on IBIT, you're going to start realizing that how Warren Buffett talks about the power of exponential returns. That same principle applies if you have a continuous set of fees. Basically, the value opportunity cost of those fees is also going to be exponential. And if also, we're talking about how bullish we are on Bitcoin, how we all expect the price of Bitcoin to continue to massively outperform most assets. It's not something that you want to be paying percentage-based fees on, because then you're going to be paying more and more for something that you could have just held on to for free. And the second thing I'll talk about is Executive Order 6102. This is in 1934 when gold was seized from individuals. I think this happening again is the biggest threat that everyone is going to encounter with Bitcoin. Jeff talked about how we're competing with governments to buy Bitcoin. I 100% agree with that. I think at one point there's going to be a negative economic period and the government's going to realize they don't have enough Bitcoin and they're going to try and take it from people. Coinbase, MicroStrategy, and IBIT are three of the biggest honeypots or collections of Bitcoin. And the easiest way for the government to acquire all this Bitcoin without disrupting markets dramatically would be the exact same thing what they did in gold in 1934. Bitcoin right now is trading at $150,000. They would offer you more money for your Bitcoin, and in return, you'll never be allowed to own Bitcoin again. Same thing that they did with gold. Gold was trading at $25 an ounce in 1934. They offered everyone $35 an ounce, which seemed like a great deal, except they were never allowed to own gold again. Gold went from $25 an ounce to over $3,600 an ounce today, and the US dollar has lost 99% of its purchasing power. It basically is like a huge warning to not let go of your Bitcoin in exchange for dollars. Dollars are designed to lose value. That's like fundamentally what they're designed to do. Macroeconomics just calculates how much we should print money. It's like, so you don't want to be, in my opinion, holding your Bitcoin externally because you're having to trust another person to give your Bitcoin back to you, not give it to the government on your behalf, allow you to use it. You gain all the principles of Bitcoin by holding on to it. If you hold it elsewhere, Bitcoin's just another asset. And I think Bitcoin is special and should be held on in self-custody.
I love that answer, Conrad. We just have Dale that raised his hand. And if he wants to ask a question, that'll be the last question of the day.
Hi, Dale.
You're on mute, Dale, but we can see you. But you're on mute if you can. There you go.
Hi there, guys. Okay, I'm Vancouver, Canada here. Good presentation. I'm learning a lot from you guys. Thank you. You mentioned Warren Buffett, and I recall something that he said about Bitcoin 3 or 6 months ago. He said it's not something he would ever touch, and he said a bunch around that. And so He's one of the smartest investors that we've ever had walk the face of the earth. So given that he is so anti-Bitcoin, how do you reconcile that?
Well, Bitcoin, Warren Buffett has a particular investing style. Warren Buffett will find undervalued companies based off of either their fair asset value or their his expectations of their ability to generate cash flows. Another asset that Warren Buffett really does not like beyond Bitcoin is actually gold. And gold, for the same reason as Bitcoin, I think he doesn't like, is because gold and Bitcoin don't generate cash flows. So if Warren Bitcoin is, if a business generates $10 a year, but it's trading like it only earns $5 a year, which means it's undervalued, Warren Buffett would scoop up that asset. That's kind of how he invests. So Bitcoin doesn't have the kind of undervalued profile that allows him to kind of get in there and make those kinds of purchases. But also, I don't think that Warren Buffett has really much reason to kind of question the current financial system, because it's done very well for him. Like, he's managed to beat inflation by sniping these specific companies that are going to outperform. In theory, if you could continue to do that, and then you can keep doing that, but then once again, you're just at the whims of banks, which might be something that Warren Buffett doesn't really worry about. But someone like us, that's not really the top 1% class that gets all these additional benefits, we kind of have to watch out for our own backs a little bit more. And we're not worried about necessarily trying to snipe out companies for undervalued cash flows. We're sniping Bitcoin for the same reason that gold has maintained value for thousands of years, just because a sound or a commodity-based money is always going to have some type of value. And what we're seeing is that more and more people are starting to recognize that value. I did mention Warren Buffett. I think he is very smart. I think like how a broken clock can be right twice a day, I think a perfectly working clock can be wrong a couple times a day as well. I would argue that this is one of those situations where Warren Buffett just misunderstands Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'll say.
Can I ask you one more question? One more, because I'm new to this, and I started, and I actually opened an account which I bought Bitcoin through Wealth Simple.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm hearing you're saying is that, and I asked them these questions: do you hold the physical Bitcoin in cold storage? And they said yes, and it's insured. Do you think that is one step removed for safety and sovereignty? You're concerned about this strategy?
Yeah, because technically Wealth Simple is just one law away from not giving you your Bitcoin. It's like if Carney or Trump or whatever jurisdiction they're in, which is Canada, they're so Wealth Simple. But if you're in Coinbase, or if you're open to jurisdictional risk. The jurisdiction you're in, we call it, like in finance, we call that systemic risk. So you're like the system that your asset resides in, that has its own risk beyond the risk for that asset, right? So it's like Apple has a risk because of like the smartphone world and all those things, but systemic risk to Apple would be like laws changing in the United States, or laws where Apple iPhones are being manufactured, those being changed. So that's kind of how like the legal system could present a tangible risk to the price of an asset. And I would argue that Wealth Simple is still a third party, which means you are increasing your systemic risk. But if you just hold your Bitcoin on a cold storage device, and kind of like, if you want to lock up your house, you don't keep your key hidden under the mat, you kind of manage the key to your house a little bit safely, then you're not going to be able to get in. Under that example, no one has broken into a house. No one has broken into a Bitcoin wallet. So your funds are incredibly safe there. Just make sure to take care of your private key, which is a service that Jeff can definitely kind of advise you on, or we could advise you on. Like Bitcoin and cold storage is unhackable. It's free. And it's also like, you don't have to ask for permission. Like if you want to withdraw all your Bitcoin from Most Simple, they might give you a litany of questions. You might get an miniature interrogation. But if you send a Bitcoin transaction, all the blockchain cares about is this a valid transaction? Like, is it being sent to a recipient? Do you have the Bitcoin? Is there a fee? If all those questions are answered yes, your transaction goes through.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dale, great question. Let me add just a few more points. Of course, we all respect Warren Buffett. He's done very well for himself. He has the largest stockpile of dollars, cash. I think he owns the most U.S. treasuries. He has no reason to change. He's old, and Bitcoin is a disruptive technology. The other thing about Warren Buffett, he's value investing and so forth, but he was always against technology companies, and I always found that funny. So the Magnificent Seven other than Apple, which it wasn't him. It was a younger person on his team that did the Apple. And they were late to it. And my whole thing is I'm from technology, and I'm always like, Warren Buffett is the hero. This guy did. Why doesn't he own Microsoft? What's wrong with him? Anyway, so I have my own there. But let me give you two other important people. Are Ray Dalio from Bridgewater. Okay, he conflates Bitcoin with gold, which is again a fixed, semi-fixed, store of value against currency debasement. So Ray Dalio, if you Google it, he's recently said, whoever you are, your portfolio should be up to 15% of gold or Bitcoin. Your choice. And that's fair enough, one or the other. And then the other person I'll say is Larry Fink, is the CEO of BlackRock. And I have a list of like what billionaires, have Bitcoin, but also people that used to be naysayers who then
they've crossed over. Okay.
Capitulated. So the CEO of BlackRock launches IBIT, and it's the most successful ETF in history with adoption and they have a gold ETF. And so the point is, Bitcoin is the best performing asset in the last 15 years, spot Bitcoin in dollar terms. But then you also have the ETF, which is now about a year and a half, 2 years of data saying it's the most successful launch. So now traditional finance is making money off of it. And then the last thing I'll say is Michael Saylor. I've been to his conferences. I met him in real life. He is my generation's Warren Buffett, the new generation.
Really?
Yeah. And so now look at MSTR strategy. Again, it's a stock on the stock exchange, but they are the best performing stock. He's publishing things where he's outperformed the Magnificent Seven on the stock since he adopted Bitcoin. So I would say the next generation, the changing of the guard, if you will, is Charlie Munger, rest in peace. Warren Buffett, no reason to he can retire right now. He's good. But I'm saying that whomever takes over Berkshire Hathaway, wouldn't it be interesting if they had a change of heart on technology stocks, the Magnificent Seven? Shouldn't they own NVIDIA? I mean, that's my critique. And then two is Bitcoin is the future. It's very specific today, and strategy. Michael Saylor is, far and away the outlier, successful person. But again, what I'm saying is these are all stocks, and they're like the derivatives. What Conrad and I are trying to do is help people be sovereign, which is the bearer instrument, the spot, the real cold storage. And with your own node is a whole unique power. And then that's for your individual family, but also for your business. And again, the last thing I'll say is I'm going to be speaking at BTC in DC the last day of September, where we're going to have policymakers, Michael Saylor and other people. And I'm going to host a panel, The Orange Wave in Business. So small businesses, variety of industries adopting Bitcoin and their stories. And some of these, well, actually, I think all of them have been guests on our podcast. So we have real referenceable businesses that have adopted Bitcoin, have great stories and success. And I'm going to host a panel in a few weeks. Excited for that. But great question about Warren Buffett. It's always funny where you're like, but I have so much respect for him. Like, yes, well, we're Bitcoiners, so that's his blind spot, and like we if he wanted to meet us halfway, we could debate it with him, but it sounds like he's good to go. So
all right, I just wanted to throw that out, and I would like to take the next step. And so if I wanted to do this, I would get in touch with you, Conrad, or you, Jeffrey, if I wanted to actually buy physical Bitcoin to put on a cold storage. Who does that?
So if you're buying for yourself and you feel like you've got a lot of the pieces already into place, you could reach out to me and just basically, or even just log into Bitcoin Wallet and start making your purchases. Something our self-directed place to buy Bitcoin. If you're looking to do large amounts, over 50K, then it kind of depends on where you're looking to do that on an individual level. And you feel like you got some of the stuff kind of sorted out, or you need a little bit of pointers. Our Infinite team can definitely help facilitate that for you. And yeah, if you need something for your business, or kind of looking to get a little bit more technical and kind of multi-sig or running a node, then I would definitely advise you to reach out to Jeff, because that's definitely his expertise there.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, anyone can reach out to me, free 30-minute consultation, just understand where you're at. And that's where, again, if I can't personally help you or Sovreign doesn't, have an opportunity together, we can at least quarterback you in the right direction. So again, it's, we can have a private consultation, meet you where you are, I'll listen for what's needed, and take it from there. Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time here, guys. Thanks.
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, everybody. And that should bring us to it. We ran a little bit over today. We had a lot of really good questions and we wanted to get to everybody. So Yeah, if you have any final questions, you can take a screenshot of this here, or just start reaching out to us right away. We're going to be saving this recording and then uploading it to YouTube. We'll also send all of you guys a copy to your email. If you have anyone that wanted to watch this presentation that wasn't able to make it today, feel free to share this video across. They can watch it anytime, listen to it on the car ride home, anything like that. So without further ado, thank you very much. We'll be back for another episode of Bitcoin for Beginners, second Wednesday of next month as well, or maybe the Thursday of that month, actually. So yes, so stay tuned if you want to catch another episode of Bitcoin for Beginners, and